Jim and David are both in the school building committee meeting. Jim is going to bounce back here in a minute. Folks here who are waiting for us. So, Patrick Zisk, you out there? Patrick Zisk,
We're on.
We're on. Okay.
We're on.
Thanks, Patrick. And here comes Jim. Just in the nick of time.
Hey, Ben.
Jim, we were just going to get started, and I saw you logging in, so I figured we'd wait a sec. Okay.
Yeah. David's going to stay on, he said. Oh.
Sure, that's fine. Okay, so we're going to get started now, folks. Welcome to the January 26, 2021 meeting of the Walpole Select Board. Being that the time is past 7 p.m., we're going to get started with our meeting tonight. We will start, we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. So we have a full board here tonight, except for David Salvatore. David is the Select Board's representative on the School Building Committee, and they are meeting this evening as well to discuss the middle school project. So he may be joining us a little bit later. But we'll get started off here with our announcement, as we always do, that all members are participating remotely due to the unprecedented time in the history of the Commonwealth based on the governor's authorization and emergency declaration order issued on March 12th of 2020. Every vote will then be taken as a roll call vote. So with that said, we'll move right into our first item under appointments, which is Fire Chief Tim Bailey, and a discussion of the fiscal year 21 budget and the use of Station 2 in East Walpole. Chief, please, why don't you go ahead and start us off here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I have asked to come before you this evening to discuss my budget as it currently sits and the operation of Station 2. So currently, I'm projected to have a shortfall in my budget of approximately $168,000 if we continue to operate the way we are until the end of the year. There's been in some of the documentation that I gave to you, it explains some of the reason for the shortfall. Two of those were payouts for people that retired. One of those is for covering a new holiday at the end of June, which was not budgeted. And more importantly is the man-for-man coverage at Station 2. As you know, back in March, I approached the board when we split up the two stations and we went from operating just out of the center to operating out of Station 1, which is the center, and Station 2, which is East Walpole. With that, I came before the board and asked, for safety reasons and for efficiency, if we could change the minimum from 8 to 9 to operate Station 2, which gave us two personnel on the engine and 2 personnel on the ambulance. And depending on the call, we cross-staff with the personnel that we have down there, and it provides for better service and for safety. Unfortunately, with that's pretty much put us at man-for-man coverage. And as we know from back in 06 to 09, before we had the layoff, that was one of the issues that we had, is that we were filling man-for-man. I, again, am running into that same situation where I will not have enough money unless I can get an infusion of money to carry through to the end of the year into the next budget cycle. Station 2 is working out extremely well. It's been very well received by the community down there. It's improved our response times to other areas of town, and more importantly, it has kept us distanced and kept us separated. One of the questions that has been recently posed to me was, with the vaccine, will that eliminate the need for us to have to operate out of Station 2? I would say that it does not necessarily mean that, for this simple reason that the vaccine is to help prevent serious illness, but it doesn't mean that we can't, in fact, get COVID still. If we were all together, we could potentially pass that on to others. So I'm looking for some direction from the board. I would like to know how you'd like me to operate. If we were to close Station 2, I would bring everyone back up here and we would revert back to the 8-man staffing. And that's pretty much what I have as far as my presentation to you. And I'll answer any questions you have with regards to it.
Yeah, sure. No, that's great, and thank you, Tim, for that. Definitely what we wanted to do was get the board's input on this, you know, hear from you, get the board's input, answer any questions, you know, as we walk through this budget process and figure out, you know, what's needed where. That's going to be a big part of it, as you mentioned. So why don't we go to Jim Johnson first here before we go around to the board. Jim, do you have any input on this or any additional information to add to what Tim just gave us?
Sure. So we'll talk about the shortfall first. Tim's been doing a great job keeping me up to speed on this. It's ballooned up a bit on this potentially it's up to a deficit of about $170,000. But that's, you know, Tim really spelled out the reasons why it's up there. We had 2 retirees that we got to cover for their payouts. The extra holiday for the Juneteenth holiday that was signed into law this past summer, that's about $14,000. And then obviously the $96,000 covering man for man. So I was hoping it was going to be more around maybe 125, 150, but it's approaching 167, 170. So I've been working with him. It's not out of the blue, tonight's discussion for me. I do have a plan in place as to how we can address this under Article 5 of the spring town meeting. We'll do the in-year budget adjustment. I expect that the school department may need some adjusting also. There's some changes that have recently come up, that requirements, and the state's going to release some more money. So I am not that concerned. Obviously, $170,000 is a lot of money, but I am not that concerned about it. I think I'll be able to develop a plan working with the chief and the finance committee as to how we can fund that. Long term with East Walpole, Tim and I have talked about that, and I actually suggested to him that we come before your board now to at least get it on your radar screen. Obviously, we're not there. The Walpole Fire and Police Departments just received the first round of vaccines a couple of weeks ago. They're going to be getting the second doses in mid-February. So we're not there yet, but we did want to make you aware of it, of course. And there's potentially some decisions that we should really have the board weigh in on. There are definitely some pros about having East Walpole open. It's a great outreach center for the community, but the cons always seem to come back to money and the cost of actually running that station full time. So that's my comments, Ben.
Sure. Well, thank you. I think that sheds a little more light on it and also gives context for the people at home. I know that sometimes we hear budget deficit or budget hole or budget gap, however you want to put it, and people can kind of freak out a little bit and wonder what's going on. But I appreciate that additional info, Jim, and I think it's something that we are going to be able to handle, and that it's a long process, that we're going to go through this whole process with FinCom, with the Finance Committee, and work through how to balance the budget in a reasonable manner. So certainly cause for concern, but no reason for alarm at all. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't add that Mr. Paul Berry, the Deputy Chief, is with us as well. Thank you, Mr. Berry, for joining us. So why don't we just go around the horn here, so to speak, with the board, and just any comments for the chief, the deputy chief, or for Jim, and any questions that you may have on this. Nancy, if we could we start with you, please?
Sure. Sure. Thanks, Chief. A question, how is the lack of NOAA going for you guys?
It's created a lot of issues with response time.
And how long?
They're gone for much longer than they were previously, which when both of them are out, which is quite often, we have to rely on mutual aid, so
And that's the same thing that every other town is doing too.
that is correct.
So basically, you're all just playing like a round robin med flight,
Pretty much.
and we don't really have any idea when they're going to be back online.
Communication with myself and them has not happened for several months now. We haven't gotten an update, so my organization.
Yeah, that is definitely a problem, and it's a long-term problem that we're not going to see go away.
I've been told it's going to be a few years,
Right.
at least.
Right. And that, that is just a huge, when we're talking about response times and how quickly fire and medics should be at a scene, it really, really puts a huge risk on our people in town as far as public safety goes. And, as far as heart attacks go, strokes go, anything like that, as quick as you can get to cath labs is as quick as you get medicine, and those make the difference of big outcomes. So that's just really disappointing. And I think for the future, until that's fixed, that is something that we're going to really have to realize is going to impact the budget. And then when you're talking about cohabitating, until we have some sort of herd immunity, the further away we keep you guys, the better off we are. I mean, it's not like they can just go out and sit in their car by themselves. They have to be living in close quarters together, that it's safer for our staff, it's safer for their families, and it's safer for the people that are having you come into their homes to take care of them to be a part. And it's not a savings that we can risk as far as I'm concerned. And that's about it.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Mark, please.
Yeah, I would. Thanks, Nancy, for saying it that way. I feel the same way. I think, especially again this year, it makes a lot of sense to have the East Walpole station open, especially to keep the firefighters spread out. And I do understand that that's a budget impact, and I think that's one that we should be willing to pay. So, I'm all in favor of the East Walpole station.
Thanks, Mark. And Jim?
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I do have one question, where in keeping the station open, I mean, these are costs that we're incurring directly related to COVID. Is there any chance to get any reimbursement of any of those costs?
So Jody has submitted the cost to be reimbursed. Initially, we rushed to get all the cost in prior to the 12/31 deadline, which was the initial deadline, which we met the deadline. They've extended some of it. So she's working with Stacy to see what else we can go back and try to recoup afterwards. But I really don't. We've been charging it off to the fire line. So this will eventually, I'm guessing it's going to come back to us and somehow close out to the general fund and then hit free cash. Nothing immediately, Jim, I guess is what I'm saying. We're going to deal with it on our own, and then we'll reap the benefits of doing that.
Yeah, I don't see it as a solution to the deficit. But I just want to make sure that if we can recover the costs, that we actually do that.
We will.
That's like we're got that on hand, so that's good. And Chief, I do have to say thank you for coming forward and bringing this to us when you did, because it's good to be apprised of these situations. I think it makes sense to keep the East Walpole station open for a lot of reasons, and so I'm totally supportive of what you've got going on here. Those other costs, it was people retire, and so you've got the payout, and of course we've got the new holiday, which then impacts your labor costs. So there's not a lot we can do about those two things. So yeah, I'm okay with this as long as we pursue the reimbursement and whatever it takes to close the gap. Let's close the gap.
Great. Thank you, Jim. And I'll just simply agree with what the other board members have said, Chief, as well. I really appreciate you bringing this to attention and working in such a forthright manner with Jim Johnson and trying to find a solution here. And I'm certainly in favor of keeping that station open. I think it's worked out very well in this particular situation, but I think in the future, it's going to be an important consideration. Again, I know it's tough to think in the future sometimes with everything that's going on now and with the pandemic and the response, but yeah, that's going to be a real thing here over the next, 5 or 6 years. So I think being able to fold that into a year-to-year budget, Jim O'Neill alluded to, is going to be something that's very important for us to do. So I appreciate that. Any further comment, Jim Johnson, or anything that you heard to add to there?
No, not on my end. I think we pretty much covered it.
Yeah.
We weren't really looking for an action for the board to take. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of it.
Okay, great. And Chief, you as well. Are you any other questions or comments that you'd like to make on this?
The only other thing that I would say, Mr. Chairman, is that in my memo, I did mention that the construction project on Route 1A that is slated to begin sometime late spring, early summer, could have an impact on our responses.
Yeah.
And if that is in fact the case, when we get to that point, we'll have that discussion again and get guidance from the board as to which way you want me to proceed with that. I did put that on the radar just so you were aware of it.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's definitely a comprehensive memo, and I think that's something that will have to be town-wide, thinking about our interface there with the state and how they're staging that, the different phases of that construction, and how that's going to impact us over a range of, and then, from businesses to public safety and everything else. So that's going to be a challenge for sure. All right, well, thank you very much, Chief and Deputy Chief Barry. Thank you for being with us. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you want me to touch on the cost share for the grant, or did you want me to hold off on that?
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, please. Please just give us the rundown on that. That would be fantastic.
So for the other members of the board, I had a brief conversation through email with Jim and Ben the other day with regards to whether or not to pursue a federal grant, which requires us to have a 10% match. We have applied for these grants in years past. Since I've been chief, we've applied for 12 of them, and we've received 6 of them. We've brought in approximately $500,000 in grants, and we've paid out $42,000 on the cost share. The cost share is based on our population. This one is called an AFG grant, which is Assistance to Firefighters Grant. And this one that I was asking about has, we can ask for up to $1 million with it. It is for personal protective equipment and or vehicles. I spoke with Jim the other day. We have a fire engine that's on the capital schedule for next year, that if the board is okay with me moving forward with this grant, which takes considerable amount of time, but we're willing to do it, we could put in and see if we can get that vehicle through that. And then it would save us considerable amount of money on the other end if we were able to receive it. That's the AFG grant through FEMA. There's another grant coming out in mid-March, which is the SAFER grant, which is the staffing grant that we've talked about in the past. Last year, we put a waive on it because of the uncertainty with COVID. I will be coming back before you in March to bring this up again, but that particular grant, they've waived the match for that. So that would be 3 years of firefighter salary on the federal government, and then we would pick it up after the 3rd year. So there'll be more to follow with that, but the immediate is getting the board's wishes on whether or not I should pursue the AFG grant, which is Assistance to Firefighters Grant, which would require a 10% match.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for bringing that up again, Chief. I had slipped my mind on that, but I think it's something we should definitely broach now. So, Jim Johnson, do you have anything to add to what Jim just put forward?
No, again, Jim and I spoke about this last week. I think it's great to get some of the money for this fire truck that's on the plan. And if the board's supportive, which it seems like you are, Tim and I just have to get on the same page as to whether or not try to bring on, 4 or 8 firefighters, with this grant, if we're successful with it, how many to put in for. But 3 years is a lot of time where I can budget and gradually increase up to there, so it's not a shock in year 4. So.
Yeah, and it's been well established, and I know that we had a work session with you, Chief. I don't know, I guess it was a year ago. It seems like it was about 4 years ago, where you stepped through in detail all the personnel requirements for the vehicles, for the response times, and all of that. So I think we're all on board there. Any other comment, just by a show of hands, anybody from the board? Further comment or questions there, Nancy?
I'll make a motion to endorse the pursuant of the grant.
Second that.
Great, thank you, Nancy. This is a great idea. So we'll proceed with a roll call vote. Given that we have a motion and a second, Nancy,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jim,
Is this one or two grants we're voting on right now? One, and then are we going to do a second motion for the second grant?
I'll come back before the board when I have more specific timelines and we'll give us another 6 or 7 weeks to see where we're actually at.
Good, that's helpful, thank you. Okay, yes, I'm good, aye.
aye. Ben, aye. 4-0-0. The motion passes. So, yeah, you know, the board certainly is very supportive of this, Chief. Really appreciate all the good work you are doing. And I know there is a lot of legwork in putting these grants together. I haven't done a couple of them over the last year myself. Nothing in this volume for sure. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming before the board tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right.
Chief.
Have a
Thanks,
good
Chief.
evening. All right, moving on. The next item we have under appointments is Jack Wiley with the Conservation Commission, and a vote to request to use a portion of funds from the Wetlands Protection Filing Fee account. I believe Mr. Wiley is with us here tonight.
I am. Good evening,
Yep.
all.
Good evening, Jack. How are you?
I am good, and hope all of you are. The wetlands filing fee. Applications made to the Conservation Commission includes a fee schedule. Part of this fee schedule is split between the state and the town. The portion of the that goes to the town initially goes to the general budget. The state portion is split into two portions. One portion goes to the state, and the other portion goes to this wetland filing fee account, which is to be used by the Conservation Commission with approval from the Select Board to apply to using it for implementation and any other activities involved with the Wetlands Protection Act. So it is specific to where it can be used. We a year ago, or actually 2 years ago, 2019, we requested a $10,000 from this fund. It was approved, and it has been used during the end of 2019 and 2020. The balance on that fund now is a few $100s. So we have put in this request for $15,000 that was voted January 13th, Conservation Commission meeting, approved the request of $15,000 by a vote of 6-0-0. So do you have any questions on where this comes from or where it goes? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. I appreciate that, and I know that the memo that you wrote to the board was fairly detailed as well with the values, and it seems like there's quite a reasonable sum of money left in there, even at this point. So what we'll do is just go around to each board member for a comment, and if we have any questions, Jack, they can lay them on you. So Nancy, could you start us off, please?
Having been through this quite a few times, I don't have any questions. I'm actually willing to make a motion.
Great.
Thumbs up if that's okay. Good, okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve the use of $15,000 from the Wetlands Protection Filing Fee account for staff hours used to administer and enforce the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act.
I'll second that and just say that I think this is a good use of money, Jack, and I know we've done this multiple times, so I'm very supportive.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion, we'll proceed with the roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye. The motion passes 4-0-0. Thank you very much, Jack. really appreciate you being with us tonight and your work in this regard. So thank you so much.
And thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Thank you. This is Landis. Appreciate it.
Oh, Landis, I'm sorry. I didn't even. I have
That's okay.
too many boxes on my Brady Bunch screen here. I'm sorry, Landis. Thank you for
I
joining
know.
us.
I was just here in case you had questions, but I just wanted to thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Landis.
Thanks, Landis.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Landis.
Right. The next item of business under appointments is with Sanja Malur, the Walpole Trails Committee, a vote request to sign a letter of support for a grant application that's going in. Sanja, hello, how are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you, Mr. Barrett.
Good, good. If you could just maybe give us a brief explanation of the grant you're looking at here and what you're looking to do, please.
Sure, okay. The wayfinding and directional signage project is going to be submitted this week, actually, to the Mass Trails Group. And we had two criteria that we must have in order to submit this grant application. We needed to have matching funds from the town, which the Rec Department and the Parks Department have been very generous and have given us 20%, which is $2,600. And we'll get the $10,400 as part of the grant request for a total of $13,000. The goal of the project is basically to improve the usability of the trails in town, of all of the public lands, and so that people could take self-guided walks and tours in town. The idea being that regardless of your level of capabilities, so that even if you cannot read a trail map or you can't read the blazes on a trail, so for example, if you've been in the town forest and you've seen the Bay Circuit Trail, it has white blazes on it. So if you have a blaze like this, it means go left, my left. And if it has a blaze like this, go right. But for those people who cannot read a trail map or who just don't have that capability yet, we wanted to make it self-guided. You all are probably very familiar with the Walpole Open Space and Recreation Plan report. As part of that report, that whole effort, I think there was a town-wide survey that was done, and one of the recommendations that came out of that actually became an objective in the report, I think it was objective 5.2.2, was that to improve the wayfinding in the trails in town. So that was one thing that we had. Another proof point that we had was every year we have, on New Year's Day, we have a guided hike typically that we do. This year, because of the pandemic, we made it a self-guided hike. So we had across the three farms in town, Jarvis, Adams, and the Aggie, we created a couple of maps and we had wayfinding. We had over 550 people who came across the span of the day on their own time to do these self-guided tours. Not only that, we had a Boy Scout troop come from the town of Quincy to do this, and we got a really nice email from them, and that's one of the criteria for the Mass Trails grant application as well. They want to know that it benefits the wider community besides just your town, and for environmental justice and things like that. So that's part of the grant application. The other criteria, besides having the matching funds, which was very generously agreed to, was that we needed to have a letter of authorization. And we sent a package to yourself and to Mr. Johnson asking for this letter of authorization. That's a must that has to be submitted. And it basically has to authorize the Walpole Trails Committee to execute on the project on town-owned public lands, and stating that the lands are owned by the town, they're town-owned public lands, and that the public will have access for at least the next decade. So that was the request that we wanted from you. And any other letters of support that we get, are always welcome, because more the better. When Gary did this grant in 2017 for the Jarvis Boardwalk, he had a whole slew of letters. We've already gotten a letter from Senator Feeney, a very nice letter supporting the project. So that's going to be helpful as well. So appreciate anything that you can do.
That's fantastic. Excuse me. Well, I appreciate the work that you've put into it so far, Sanja, and that sounds like an excellent and certainly worthwhile cause. And I think it's fantastic and again worthwhile to mention that it's linked to the Open Spaces Plan. As you said, right? These are plans that we spend a lot of time putting together with concrete goals, and so when we're able to go out and get additional funding through grants to achieve those goals, it's a whole plan coming together, which is
Right.
just excellent. So what we'll do is just go around to the board members, Sanja, and have any questions or comments as we go through, and then we'll have a motion.
Okay.
So Nancy, if you could start us off, please.
I just want to say more than ever, it just shows what a gem of a community we have and how many natural resources we have to know that we have trails, forest, walking trails like during this time that we can all get out, get healthy, you know, sun time, walking time, and still be so spaced apart from each other. It's absolutely fabulous. I mean, there's trails in North Walpole, there's trails in South Walpole, there's trails in East Walpole, trails in West Walpole. I mean, 20 square miles, and you can hike so many different trails and be alone, where that doesn't happen in a lot of communities. And you know, then we throw in the trustees, and we've got a park in the middle in East Walpole too. So, I mean, we're really lucky, and we're so lucky to have people like you and the other people in the committee that are willing to make that your passion and really, you know, find more opportunities for us. And you're absolutely right. During this time especially, people that don't know how to read trails, to have it just be a lot more friendly is a really good thing. With that being said, I'll make a motion to sign the letter of support to the Walpole Trails Committee grant application to the Mass Trails Grant Program.
Thank you.
I'll second that, and just, I agree with Nancy and think that our trails network is great. And anything we can do to get people out walking around is a great thing. And I think it'll make people more confident to go on trails they haven't tried before if they know they can actually make it back to wherever they started. So I think it's great.
Without getting lost, that would be good, yeah.
Yes.
In this year of the pandemic, it's been a saving grace to be able to get out.
For sure. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Being that there is none, we'll proceed with the roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye. The motion passes 4-0-0. So thank you very much again, Sanja, for bringing this before us and putting
Thank
this
you.
work in. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And it's a wonderful town to live in. I have to say that. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. All right. Have a good evening. Thank you.
You too.
Excuse me. Moving on to the next item is under appointments is a vote the request of automotive buyers for Class 2 dealer license at 1171 Main Street. So why don't we go, Jim Johnson, could you just give us a little background on this? And I know that the paperwork was in here.
Sure. And to kind of, if the board has any questions, I also asked Deputy Building Inspector Jim Crowley to join us on this call so I can see Jim's here. This is something we've never really dealt with before. EFA did a lot of research into this request. Basically, it's for a Class 2 dealer's license for Automotive Buyers Advantage Inc. at 1171 Main Street, Bay number 3. And that's where the little, it's a little different here. It's Bay number 3. So there will be no in-person sales conducted at the property. He's leasing office space, parking space, and for the storage of the cars for repair prior to sale. All transactions are to be conducted online with no direct sales occurring on the property. We've reached out to building, police, fire, treasurer collector. They all have no issues with it. We touched base with town council. It's allowed, but it's just something a little different we've never really dealt with. So we had to do a little research on it, but we're all pretty comfortable with it at this point.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So, okay, I see that, oh, there's Jim. Hey, Jim, do you have anything to add to what Jim Johnson just said? Any additional comments on the rest of it?
No, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the zoning board, on the zoning side of it, he is allowed, he's going to an existing use. So he is allowed to do the maintenance on cars. He's up to 5 cars there, which is allowed. He is not allowed to bring the public or have any public there for selling of cars. That's why he's doing all online sales. Otherwise, if he does want to bring the public there, he's going to have to go before the zoning board for a special permit.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you very much, Jim. And so, Mr. Tom Griffin, I see that you're with us here as well. any additional comments or clarifications or context that you'd like to put before the board?
Yeah, it's most of my business is going to be. It's not even going to even make it to the Walpole address. It's, a lot of what I do is flipping cars between different dealerships and to you know, back and forth from the auction. So sometimes I'll have a customer look for something to get retail ready, and those cars I'll be storing there to get fixed up and make sure that they're, you know, good to go. But a lot of what I'm selling are, you know, under warranty already. They're not, you know, the cheap end cars where you got to do a lot of work to them. They're pretty much ready to go. And it's kind of like a smaller version of what Carvana and Zoom is doing right now. It's more just direct to the person. I think with all the COVID and everything, I think it's going to be the model of the future. So I'm trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah, great. All right, well, thank you. I appreciate that. So we'll just go around to the board here for questions and comments. Nancy, if you could start us off, please.
As long as our staff is good, you know, we're trying something. Walpole's going out on a limb, and I think it sounds like we're being pretty business friendly. We like the idea that you have the model. I do just want to caution that, you know, people on property would lead to going to zoning, just because that's what I'm hearing. But otherwise, welcome, and, you know, thank you for bringing another business to Walpole. And, you know, this is a hard time, so to be opening a business is great. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been, just a little background, I've been in the car business for about 30 years, which is also considered a punishment by a judge. If you're in the car business for 30 years, that's like 50 years in jail. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Mark.
I would just say, wish you good luck. I think that's a good spot over there for the business you're talking about, and wish you well.
Thanks, Mark.
And Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. It's an innovative idea. I like it a lot. Two quick questions for you. Are you going to be storing cars on the lot?
Mostly just, they'll be there when they're getting fixed up for the most part. The cars, I have an agreement with a mechanic in that same space and a body shop. They'll be doing the work for me. And then once the car's done, I'm taking it right straight to the customer.
Okay. And that probably answers my second one, but stay on the first one for a second. So what's the limit in terms of the number of cars? The reason I ask is that we've run into trouble with this in the past, and I just want to make sure that we don't, you know, get tangled up on this one. So what's the limit on the number of cars you can actually have on the lot at a time?
I requested 5 spaces. I think there are more spaces available, but I don't think I'm going to need them. But 5 should be plenty, you know, and if that number changes, I guess I just get back in contact with you guys and ask permission for more, I guess, down the road.
Okay, so it's 5. Okay, that's good. And it sounds like my other question was going to be, does the person who's buying the car have to come to pick it up? Sounds like no, you drive it to them.
Yes, I have a dealer plate, and for certain transactions, you know, I'll meet with them, do the paperwork, get the car registered, put their plate on it, and then someone follows me over and we drop the car off.
Okay, great.
A lot of people are really not enjoying getting out and getting in and out of cars and stuff. So I've been doing that already, just not through this license yet. So.
Got it. Good. Well, thank you. I appreciate you answering my questions, and I think
Thank
it's
you.
a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, Nancy.
I'll make a motion to approve the request of Automotive Buyers Advantage, Inc. for a Class 2 dealer license to operate at 1171 Main Street, Bay Number 3, with the condition there will be no in-person / public sales conducted on the premise.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion, we'll proceed with a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben? Aye. The motion passes 4-0-0. Thank you again, Mr. Griffin. And
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Have a good evening.
Good luck.
Thanks.
All right. So we are going to skip to item number 2 under new business here. Jim Johnson,
Sure.
I know that we had talked about this a little bit. If you could give the board a brief overview of what you're looking for here.
Sure. So what I'm asking for is basically the board to grant me an extension up to February 12th to deliver the budget and budget message. I don't believe I'm going to need that long. The reason I'm asking for this extension is the charter specifically outlines some real specific dates as to when the budget and budget message is supposed to be delivered. It specifically says the first Monday in February. My concern is the governor's coming out with his budget supposedly tomorrow. I'm hoping I'll have the numbers from the cherry sheets and be able to plug them in by the end of the day or on Thursday. But I want to make sure that the budget message is well thought out, well put together. I already have a draft ready to go, but I want to make sure all the numbers make sense and that Walpole Media Corp has time to edit and to insert the PowerPoint and the various presentations that I'm going to include there. Council suggested I just run it by this board. She explained that it's not directory, it's discretionary if the board grants an extension. Again, I don't like asking for this extension, but I want to make sure it's done right, and I want to provide the Finance Committee with the most up-to-date and accurate information. So that's why I'm asking for this.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. I agree completely. Nancy?
I will make a motion to approve the request of the town administrator for an extension from February 1st to no later than my mother's birthday, February 12th, to deliver the budget and the budget message.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Muted, Mark.
Sorry about that. I would second that. I was just gonna say, I think this makes a lot of sense, Jim, to wait for the governor's budget numbers. So many numbers are up in the air these days with COVID and, is there federal aid to the state? Is there state aid to the towns? So it's good to at least be able to lock in on the governor's budget. So makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion, we'll proceed with the roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye. The motion passes 4-0-0.
I will make a motion to replace any reference of the Board of Selectmen to Select Board in the Town of Walpole policies and procedure manuals.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion, we'll proceed with the roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye. Motion passes 4-0-0.
I'll make a motion to accept the gift from Diane Lasivita to the Council on Aging.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Proceed with roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. Motion passes 4-0-0.
I'll make a motion to accept the gift from Walpole Pharmacy to the Council on Aging grab-and-go lunch donation.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Proceed with a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. The motion passes 4-0-0.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes dated December 8th and 22nd, 2020, and January 12th, 2021, as presented in our packet.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion, we'll proceed with the roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye. The motion passes 4-0-0. And we are down to, well, Jim Johnson. Why don't you go ahead with your town
Sure.
administrator's update, please?
Okay, so just a couple of items to update you folks. COVID update. At this time, we have 1,379 total confirmed cases in Walpole. 1,255 cases have completed monitoring. That leaves the Board of Health with 124 active cases. This is down from my update 2 weeks ago, so that's a good bit of news. It's going in the right direction, it seems like. And that's where we stand with that. Quick update on trash. Melissa and I have slowly started working on developing a game plan for recycling and trash contract that's set to expire in June of 2022. We're likely to have something formal for your board to discuss and to provide an update the next few months. I can tell you that for now, trash fees for weekly trash collection is not being discussed or on the table in any form. I don't plan on bringing it up or discussing it unless I'm directed to do so by the select board. So I know when this came up a couple of months ago, when I added on the TA updates, there were some ideas floating out there. I just wanted to kind of clarify that we're really in the beginning stage of this, and fees are not on the table right now. Vaccine update. We're in the process of setting up a vaccine clinic to be held at the Council on Aging starting in February, probably mid to early part of February. Details are set to be finalized. I met with Melissa and Carrie and Patricia yesterday over at the Council on Aging. We're just trying to figure out where we're going to brief people, bring them in. So we're in the planning stages right now. Once everything's finalized, we'll be providing the information on the town website and through the Council on Aging. Carrie is going to assist the seniors who need assistance, or our residents, with logging in, making sure that everything, the forms are completed correctly. Eventually the resident will have to sign off on the bottom, but we're going to do everything we can in our power to help those who need assistance with this thing as much as we can. It's a good thing. I actually had 2 towns reach out to me today and asked how are we going about setting it up. They saw us on the portal that the state developed. So it's a good thing to be able to help our residents, and eventually we'll start with the 75 and older. I think a week or 2 later, maybe the 65 and older with 2 more comorbidities, and then we'll phase into the teachers, the K through 12 educators, DPW workers, trash workers. It's a long list, but that's in phase 2, section 3, if you want to call it. It's the third grouping. So we're working on it, and it's good to be able to see some light at the end of this tunnel. So much more to come on this one, but we'll be helping the residents however we can with this. The Community Development Director position update. I'm pleased to report that we have someone who is set to start in mid-February to replace Ashley. He's currently the assistant planner in Norwood, and look forward to working with him. Once he starts, I'll bring him on board for a Zoom meeting to introduce him to your board, and same with the ZBA and the Economic Development Commission. Animal Control Officer update. John Splain notified me that myself and the chief, that he's set to retire. In many ways, the Animal Control Officer job can be a thankless position. John's done a great job over the years serving as the ACO. I've been in contact with the Norwood General Manager just towards the end of last week about possibly setting up some type of a regional district. I'm optimistic that he and I can work together to set up something when we come to your board and Norwood, the select board, with an intermunicipal agreement in the near future. It may take a little while than expected, and this gets to my last point. The Norwood Assistant General Manager passed away yesterday. Aoife told me in the morning. I reached out to Tony in Norwood. Obviously, we send along our condolences. Bernie served Norwood for 30 plus years, and he was a real asset to the community. And Tony was the well wishes were well received all across the state, he tells me. So too bad to hear. And that's it for updates for me.
All right, thank you, Jim. Any questions or comments from the board for Jim on the town administrator's update? Jim O'Neill, please.
It's just a thought. Maybe we could send a letter of condolence to Norwood on the passing of the assistant town manager.
That'd be great.
Yeah, on behalf of the board, I think that's a great idea, Jim, for sure. Yes, Mark?
I just wanted to say, Jim, a big thank you to you and Patrick and Melissa for being able to take care of our seniors at the senior center. That's a great thing, that they won't have to head over to Gillette or somewhere that they're not familiar with. So I think that's a big thing for our seniors, and it's really appreciated.
Yeah, it's all going to be a matter of, can we get the vaccine, and how much can we get? What can we rely on? As of yesterday, we thought we were going to get 100 doses. I learned today that we got 200, so it's 100 more than we expected. But a call I was on earlier today said we're going to be getting it out to you as quickly as possible. But they want to make sure, our Board of Health wants to make sure that they have enough on hand for when the portal goes live. We can cut it off at a certain point. The goal is to start it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Have Tuesdays open to the general public on the state's portal site, which we're required to do, and then Thursdays to help with some specific people that would sign up with Kerry. So, and we're still coming up with that game plan.
Great.
Yes, Nancy, please.
Jim, also just to note that how quick and how great they are over at the Council on Aging. My mother called me right away at work today to let me know that the senior center had left her a voicemail, and so she wanted me to be right on top of that. And the excitement in her voice to get that call, she was so happy. And Kerry, so I spoke to Kerry, and her concern and jumping right on it, that they're talking about over 75 and that they need a secure email address, and they need to be able to get into, essentially it's almost like trying to get tickets to a U2 concert over, whatever website. So for these seniors, this could be really difficult. And she's awesome. They're awesome over there. And to know that this is a gap, that's great. And then, we've all had a few people reach out, but when you think about, I have done a very good job of keeping my mother away from places like the supermarket or Gillette Stadium or going into CVS and going into Walgreens. That's not where I want my mother to then go into to get a vaccine. So to have the option to have them go someplace like our senior center and just keep them local is a breath of fresh air and very exciting, very, very, very exciting. So I had already also offered to Kerry that myself, and I know plenty of other nurses in this town, are very happy to help and get this done for our seniors. So that's it.
Great.
Sure, for sure. Thanks, Nancy. All right, great. So moving on. Okay, I see David's with us. Hello, David. Moving on to the last item of business that we have under the open session tonight. And David is, as I mentioned at the outset of the meeting, the select board's liaison to the school building committee, which also had a meeting tonight. So we wanted to hold off on this item until we had our full board so that everyone could have their say. Is the first item under new business, which is a follow-up discussion on the 400 Summer Street property. For those who don't remember, back on December 8th, this board had counsel from the Kraft Gillette Stadium property ownership group in to talk about their request or their interest in purchase of the 400 Summer Street property, which is right off of Summer Street by the water towers and backs up to the current parking lot area in Gillette, kind of where the HBO Max Christmas lights display was. So we had a discussion at that point, a lot of questions, a lot of comments from the board, and we had said, or had closed that discussion by saying that we would get back to them with an answer once we were able to consider the offer, once we were able to get with residents, talk with the town administrator, and really consider, the pluses and minuses of heading down that road. And so we brought it up again today. I think it's reasonable for us to take a vote and get back to them. We heard back from that council again a couple of times since that discussion. So we really just want to close this item and move forward. If we could, Jim Johnson, was there anything I missed there that you wanted to chip in with?
No, like you said, closing the loop on this, and Aoife and I both need to know: does the board want to pursue it, or just simply let them know, no, we don't want to pursue it?
Yeah, and so that sounds good. So why don't we just go around here. Nancy, why don't we start with you, please?
I'll make a motion that we direct the town administrator, Jim Johnson, to send a letter that is very polite yet stern and exact, that we are in no way interested in entertaining any option of selling 400 Summer Street.
I'll second that for discussion because I'm sure everybody wants to make some comments, and I'll start. So I don't have any interest in pursuing the sale of that land. I did hear from a lot of people, most of whom were in South Walpole, who are not supportive. There's too much going on in South Walpole. We don't need to be adding to the traffic woes and the congestion and all of that. So that's it.
Okay, Nancy, did you have anything that you wanted to add besides the motion, or you?
The motion is the motion. What I do want to add is that in no way do I or have I considered that surplus land. Those words came from somebody outside of Walpole and somebody with their own special interest. So I just wanted to be clear for that.
Okay, thank you, Nancy.
And can I make a quick follow-up? I forgot to mention, but several people mentioned to me that just like, you know, where I live, we go to Adams Farm to take a walk or do cross-country skiing. A lot of people do go in the woods around the water tower. So they were talking about the trails that went from here to there and all that. So that's someplace that I've never walked around, but I found it interesting that, you know, it's a big open space with a lot of trees, and there are a lot of people out there, you know, enjoying nature and seeing the animals and stuff. So
yeah, it's a fair point. There's a lot more houses that back up to that property than you would think upon initial inspection. So next, David, please.
Yeah, it's just clearly town has future needs, possibly for siting facilities, or just as it's used now as current open space, you know, future recreation facilities there, or you know, even town facilities. We also, something that I brought up before the board previously, you know, we have, you know, I believe that our cemetery space is filling up, and that, you know, it's possible that we might need some of that space, and, you know, it might be a very nice, quiet area for future cemetery use. And as I hear cemeteries make good neighbors, I think the neighbors might not be too upset with that. But, and so as to the issue of surplus, it is not surplus. I think it's certainly useful and will be useful for the future of the town. And any, you know, we would be making a determination that is surplus for purposes of looking for potential buyers, but in no way is this land surplus. And I agree with the motion as presented.
David. Jim.
Yeah, you know, I was a little surprised that this came back, given that I thought our position before was pretty clear, pretty forceful. And so I agree with the motion that says we need to make it absolutely clear, because this can't just be one of these things where every now and again they come back. I have no interest in doing anything with this land. I think it's valuable land to the people who live in South Walpole, who have gone through a whole lot. They deal with the Gillette and traffic noise. We get the 40B. It's going to drive a lot of traffic. We get the train going through there. It's just a lot of things that are happening in South Walpole. There's just no way that, in my mind, we should be doing anything with this land, and just leave it as is, and you know, let the people that are living down there enjoy it. I too had a number of calls from people who said that they use it as walking trails and so forth, and I think that's terrific. So again, I just think we need to make it really clear that we're closing the door on the auction, and we don't expect to hear back, and, you know, let it go at that. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And I don't have anything further to add to all the comments made by the board. I'm in full agreement there. And I appreciate the board bringing it back here for our final discussion and vote to hopefully close the issue. So we have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion, we'll proceed with the roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
500, the motion passes. Okay, so the board will now go into executive session for purpose 2, which is to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to connect collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically to negotiate with non-union personnel, that is Michael Donovan and Fire Chief Bailey, and there will be a possible vote to approve and sign contracts after the executive session. So we'll go to executive session, we'll have our discussion, and then to have our vote or any final comment, we will return to open session. So in order to move to executive session, I believe we need a motion and a vote.
Oh, I make a motion to leave our regular meeting. I'm sorry, I was looking at my packet.
No, it's okay. Move to executive session for the purpose 2.
Okay, so moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion, proceed with the roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye. Motion passes 500. We will see you all again here shortly.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion, we'll proceed with a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye. The motion passes 5-0-0.
I'll make a motion to approve and sign the contract for Fire Chief Timothy Bailey.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion, we'll proceed with a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye. 5-0-0. The motion passes. And I believe that's all the business before us tonight. Jim Johnson, are you okay?
And great, thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Yep, good night, everybody.
Sorry, just a motion. Do we do
A
a
motion
motion
I'm sorry. Motion
to adjourn? Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm tired.
Sorry.
There's two in a row. No, there's two in a row. Two in a row for me. Jeez. All right. I'd hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Proceed with the roll call votes. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye. The motion passes 5-0-0. Aoife, thank you very much. Everybody have a
Very
good evening.
welcome.